COVID-19 destroyed the world. But what we didn't know was that a discovery once ignored would save it. In early 2020, the world was filled with fear. COVID-19 spread quickly, changing lives and everything we knew. Hospitals were full, economies collapsed, and millions of lives were at risk. In all the panic and uncertainty, the only hope was a vaccine to end the pandemic. But this vaccine wasn't just any discovery. It was the result of mRNA research, a technology that most people didn't believe could work. Katalin Karikó, a scientist who had been ignored for years, was about to give up on her work. Why did she keep going? What made her believe in it when the world thought her discovery would never succeed? Katalin Karikó was born on January 17, 1955, in Kisij, a small village in Hungary. Her family lived with limited resources. Their house had no running water, and her father worked hard as a butcher to meet their daily needs. Although they lived simply, Katalin felt there was something bigger she needed to pursue. Since she was young, she had been interested in how the human body works and how everything in the world could be connected. However, even though the scientific world seemed very interesting to her, the dream of becoming a scientist was something hard to achieve for a girl from a small village. There was no support, and not many people believed that she could achieve it. But inside her, there was an unstoppable drive, a desire to learn more and discover new things that could be useful to the world. When she finally continued her education at the University of Szeged, Katalin entered a very different world. In the academic world, she felt alienated. Around her, most of the scientists were men, and her ideas were often ignored. The academic world preferred ideas that were already proven and tested, while she wanted to do something different, something that could change the way people looked at diseases and how we heal them. During her academic journey, Katalin decided to pursue a topic that was still new and not widely known at the time: mRNA, a material in our bodies that carries information to make proteins. In other words, mRNA is like a message or instruction that tells our bodies how to make important parts needed for our health. mRNA stands for messenger RNA. It is a type of RNA molecule that carries genetic information from DNA in the cell nucleus to the ribosomes, where proteins are made in the cell. But at that time, the idea of using mRNA as medical therapy was not known, and many people thought it was too risky and hard to believe. They said it was too new, too uncertain, and too far from what was already known. Although her research on mRNA was considered impossible to succeed, Katalin remained confident. She knew that if mRNA could be modified in the right way, it could be the answer for many diseases, even diseases that couldn't be cured with regular methods. But even though she believed in her idea, the academic world still rejected her, and every time she submitted a research proposal for funding, the answer was always the same: no. When she moved to the University of Pennsylvania in the United States, Katalin hoped to get more support. However, the reality was not much different. The scientific world was also not ready to accept a new and different idea. She felt increasingly alienated, and every time she presented the idea of mRNA, many people doubted its possibilities. Funding for research was very difficult to obtain, and often new ideas like hers never had the chance to develop. One cold evening, after another rejection, Katalin sat in her quiet office. The rain was pouring heavily outside, and for a moment, she felt tired and defeated. However, it was then that a new idea came to her mind: a way to modify mRNA to make it safer for use in therapy. If she could change how mRNA worked, she could avoid the side effects that often appeared. It was a big step, a small hope that burned inside her heart. Katalin knew that she didn't have all the answers yet. Many people still doubted her research, and she didn't know if the world would ever be ready to accept mRNA as a main medical therapy. But one thing was certain: she couldn't stop now. Her struggle was not over. However, in the darkness of that night, a small light appeared. Drew Weissman, a colleague at the University of Pennsylvania, who believed in her and her discovery. Together, they began to work on testing this new idea. The modifications to mRNA that they tried were still not perfect, but gave them hope that maybe, someday, they could change the world. With a renewed spirit, Katalin knew that her journey was far from over. The world might not be ready for mRNA, but she believed her discovery could change the way we see and treat diseases. When many people doubted her, she could only hold on to one principle. If not me, then who? After moving to the University of Pennsylvania, Katalin Karikó felt like an outsider in the bigger scientific world. A world that was supposed to make room for new ideas instead closed its doors tightly. Katalin knew what she had was a great discovery, but to many people, it was just an experiment that could never be accepted. The medical world remained skeptical and did not immediately accept mRNA as a legitimate medical therapy. At that time, more conventional and time-tested therapies, like vaccines made from weakened or inactivated viruses and chemical treatments, were prioritized. These traditional vaccines have been used for many years to fight various diseases and were proven safe. mRNA, as an emerging technology, was seen as a risky approach. mRNA vaccines had not been proven on a large scale, so many scientists and medical professionals felt safer using therapies that had already been proven and were stable. The medical world was more comfortable with treatments that had been tested over time, such as antibiotics or chemotherapy for cancer, which had been used for years with more predictable results. That's why when Katalin Karikó proposed mRNA as a solution, many people doubted it. This new and improved approach was seen as too risky, even though it had great potential to tackle diseases that couldn't be cured by conventional methods. The medical world at that time preferred to stick with treatments that had been proven safe, even though new technologies like mRNA had the potential to change the way medicine works. When Katalin submitted her research proposals, the answer was always the same: no. Still, inside Katalin, there was something stronger than doubt. A burning belief that mRNA could be the key to more effective treatments. Every time she felt tired and almost lost hope, she remembered how great the potential of mRNA was. But there was one thing she couldn't avoid: the deepening loneliness. This scientific world didn't just reject her ideas, it also placed her in isolation that felt like it was closing in on her. She often felt stuck in silence, as if no one saw what she was fighting for. But in that isolation, a spark of hope appeared. Drew Weissman, a young immunologist at the University of Pennsylvania, began showing interest in Katalin's mRNA idea. Drew was not just another colleague. He believed in the potential of Katalin's research, something almost impossible to find in the academic world that had rejected her. In Drew, Katalin found someone who could see more than just scientific theory, someone who believed that mRNA could become a medical revolution. Their collaboration began with hope, but their path was not as smooth as they imagined. Katalin and Drew spent many long nights in the lab, trying various modifications of mRNA to ensure the body could accept it without harmful side effects. They knew this was a big experiment, and although both of them felt a bit more confident, the results were still far from perfect. But there was one thing they knew for sure: they would not stop, even though the world wasn't ready. Those days were filled with uncertainty, and although there was some small progress in their experiments, there was still doubt out there. In the midst of the uncertainty, Katalin felt that there was only one thing that could stop them: despair. But she knew that despair would never win. She couldn't stop now. On a quiet night, Katalin sat in her dark office, watching the rain pour outside. The room felt so silent, almost as if it reminded her of the loneliness she felt in this struggle. But in the silence, she felt a flash of insight. A new idea appeared in her mind: modifying mRNA so the body could accept it without triggering harmful side effects. This was the first big step they needed to take this discovery further. With confidence, Katalin turned to Drew, who also started to see a clearer spark of hope. They began planning more structured experiments, trying a more mature and systematic approach. Every experiment they did brought them closer to their goal, finding a way for mRNA to be used safely without high risks to the body. However, even though mRNA offered great potential, this technology still came with significant risks. One of the biggest issues was how the immune system responds to mRNA. When mRNA is inserted into the body, our immune system can see it as a foreign substance and trigger an excessive reaction, causing inflammation or other side effects, such as fever and pain. These excessive reactions can be very dangerous, even damaging healthy tissues. Also, mRNA itself is very unstable. Without proper protection, like lipid nanoparticles, small protective particles for mRNA, this molecule can break down quickly before it can deliver the needed instructions. This can reduce the effectiveness of therapies that depend on mRNA. There is also the potential for toxicity, which can harm organs, especially if the body cannot process mRNA properly. If the mRNA is not broken down properly, it can damage vital organs like the liver or kidneys, though this is rare. To address all these risks, Katalin Karikó and Drew Weissman began developing ways to modify mRNA to make it safer. They found ways to change the structure of mRNA just slightly so the body could accept it without triggering harmful immune reactions. With this modification, mRNA could be more stable and effective in delivering instructions to the body without causing harmful side effects. This was a huge step toward making mRNA a safer medical therapy. Although the world wasn't ready yet, they felt that this small breakthrough could lead to big changes. Even though there was still much to be achieved, Katalin felt a little more confident. Her collaboration with Drew gave her a new sense of hope, something she hadn't felt in a long time. They might still be fighting against uncertainty, but Katalin knew that the first step had been taken, and the path to a better future was beginning to show itself. Katalin Karikó felt like she was stepping into a bigger world, but it was still filled with doubts and challenges. After years of struggling without enough support, a discovery that was once considered impossible now began to show real progress. Together with Drew Weissman, they found a way to modify mRNA so it could be used more safely in medical therapies. Although this discovery was huge, the medical world was still not ready to accept mRNA as a legitimate solution. The medical world preferred proven, safe, and tested approaches, like vaccines made from weakened or inactivated viruses and chemical treatments. mRNA was a new technology that had not been proven on a large scale, so many scientists were still hesitant to consider it as a main medical therapy. But Katalin and Drew remained confident. They felt that mRNA could be a new way to fight diseases that could not be cured by traditional methods. Despite the constant rejection, a ray of hope slowly appeared. Moderna and Pfizer, two big pharmaceutical companies, began to show interest in the potential of mRNA. They saw that this technology could change the way the medical world dealt with the pandemic. Collaboration with big companies gave Katalin and Drew the chance to develop their research further, although many challenges still had to be faced. But something new started happening. Big pharmaceutical corporations began to see the huge potential of mRNA. Moderna, which had focused on mRNA technology from the beginning, saw a big opportunity to develop a vaccine using this technology. The same happened with Pfizer, which teamed up with BioNTech to develop the mRNA COVID-19 vaccine. Their discovery opened the door to collaborating with big industries, taking their research to the global level. However, their journey wasn't that easy. Even though there was growing interest from the industry, doubts still lingered. Katalin knew that although pharmaceutical companies were starting to see the great potential of mRNA, funding and support were still hard to come by. They faced the reality that this paradigm shift in the medical world would take time, and many scientists and doctors were still more comfortable with traditional treatments. Amid all this, Katalin felt some progress, but also increasing tension. Sitting in the lab that night, she thought back on the long journey they had been through, challenges, rejection, and loneliness. Every time she felt cornered by the world's doubt, she could only remind herself of the reason she started. This discovery wasn't just about her. It was about a better future for medicine. In that isolation, Drew came as a light to guide her path. Together, they were determined to keep going even though they knew many still doubted their discovery. They did experiment after experiment, and even though the mRNA they were testing was still full of uncertainty, their spirit never wavered. Every experiment, no matter how small, gave them hope. Their small steps became a breakthrough that couldn't be stopped. On a quiet night, as the rain poured heavily outside their lab window, a big idea came to Katalin's mind. A more effective modification of mRNA could reduce harmful side effects, offering a great opportunity for safer treatment. This was the first big step they needed to take their discovery further. With that idea, they were filled with new energy. However, despite the small progress, the medical world was still skeptical. Big pharmaceutical companies, which were initially only interested in the potential of vaccines, started to look deeper into mRNA. They saw that this technology could be used for more than just infectious diseases. The potential for cancer, genetic diseases, and other illnesses became clearer. A change in the way medicine works was near, but there was still a lot to be done. Katalin knew, even though the world wasn't fully ready, that the first step had been taken. They had not only broken through the wall of skepticism, but they also realized the power of mRNA to change the lives of millions. This was a hopeful beginning, a long journey that would lead them to a bigger place. When the world was trapped in uncertainty because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the mRNA discovery pioneered by Katalin Karikó and Drew Weissman finally found its true purpose and wide acceptance. What was once considered a risky technology now proved to be the key to fighting the global pandemic. Moderna and Pfizer, two big pharmaceutical companies, immediately recognized the huge potential of mRNA vaccines. With mRNA technology, they were able to produce the COVID-19 vaccine much faster than traditional vaccines. This vaccine was not only produced quicker, but also had an incredibly high effectiveness rate in protecting millions of people worldwide. The mRNA vaccine became a new hope for many countries struggling to control the spread of the virus. By using the genetic information from the SARS-CoV-2 virus, this vaccine taught the body how to recognize and fight the virus much more effectively. Thanks to the mRNA vaccine, millions of lives were saved worldwide. Katalin, who had been struggling alone for years to convince the world that mRNA could become a leading medical therapy, finally saw her discovery become a reality. What was once considered too risky now became a medical solution that saved the world. Though the long journey was far from over, mRNA proved it could change the medical world and be a lifesaver in critical times. Amid all of this, Katalin felt more confident than ever before. Their long and challenging struggle was now starting to show real results. The medical world might not have been fully ready for mRNA, but they knew one thing. This discovery was the future, and they wouldn't stop until the world was truly ready to accept it. After years of rejection and loneliness, Katalin Karikó and Drew Weissman finally saw the results of their long struggle. They knew that mRNA was not just a scientific experiment, it was a discovery that could change the medical world. However, Katalin and Drew kept going, even though they felt isolated and were fighting against doubts. They finally found a way to modify mRNA, making it safer for use in medical therapy. With this modification, mRNA could not only be used for vaccines, but also for cancer treatment and genetic diseases. This major breakthrough opened the door to collaboration with big pharmaceutical companies, which finally began to see the potential of this technology. The success of the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine developed by Moderna and Pfizer brought mRNA to the world's attention. The medical world, which had previously closed its doors, now began to see that the mRNA vaccine was not only quickly produced, but also proven effective in protecting millions of people from COVID-19. This was a big step that marked a paradigm shift in how diseases are treated and controlled. However, even though the medical world was starting to accept mRNA, there were still challenges to face, and Katalin knew their struggle was not over. Even though the success of the COVID-19 vaccine brought new hope, Katalin and Drew realized that there was still a lot to be done. One of the biggest challenges was mass production of mRNA. Making mRNA in large quantities for vaccines and other therapies required advanced technology and strong infrastructure, which was not fully available worldwide. Also, global access to mRNA vaccines and therapies remained a big issue, especially in developing countries. Despite progress, fair distribution continued to be a challenge that the world had to face. However, despite the big challenges still ahead, Katalin felt a new sense of clarity. What had once been an idea thought impossible was now a real solution that could save millions of lives. With the support of Moderna and Pfizer, Katalin and Drew saw how their discovery was quickly changing the medical world. The mRNA vaccine was now not only seen as a technological breakthrough, but also as the key to future medical therapies. However, even though the medical world began to open up, Katalin's journey was not just about scientific success. Behind her extraordinary achievement, there was a personal journey filled with doubts and isolation. Katalin often remembered the times when she felt isolated in the scientific world, when many doubted her abilities. Yet, despite so many rejections, there was one person who was always by her side, her husband, Katalin Karikó. Katalin met Istvan, a biochemist at Szeged University. They connected through their shared love for science and research. Istvan, who was also a scientist, fully supported Katalin's journey, even when the academic world didn't believe in her discovery. Istvan's support always gave Katalin the strength to keep going, especially when loneliness and doubt were blocking her path. Together, they became an inseparable team, supporting each other through difficult times. Katalin felt that, although she received international recognition, there were many personal sacrifices she had to face. Time spent with family was often forgotten as she focused so much on her research. But when mRNA vaccines began to save lives around the world, personal recognition came naturally. Istvan, who had always been by her side, celebrated every achievement with Katalin. In 2021, Katalin Karikó finally received the Nobel Prize for her contribution to the development of the mRNA vaccine. It was recognition that came late, but more than that, this award was the fruit of her years of struggle. It wasn't just about her, but also about those who believed in science and the belief that mRNA could change the medical world. Now, with the Nobel Prize in her hands, Katalin saw that the medical world was beginning to recognize what was once considered impossible. However, she knew this was just the beginning of a big change in medicine. mRNA not only saved the world from the pandemic, but it also opened the door for new therapies that would save more people in the future. Katalin Karikó and Drew Weissman show us that great success often comes after years of doubt and sacrifice. If you feel inspired by their story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to continue following these great stories of discoveries that change the world. Do you have a topic or another scientist you'd like to see in the next video? Leave a comment and share your thoughts for the next video. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.